Alice says, do you use analyst chart to trade? Okay, well, you already saw an example. Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't switched my screen. Perfect. And in a sense, what you already saw, what I was using, Alice, is what Ernie and I suggest to our investors during the coaching sessions and so forth. What we use doesn't have to be what you use at all, Alice. It's what we use here on Power Options. What do I mean by that? So if I went to a covered call search right now, and we're looking at the far out simulated CD positions, let's go to something, let's just go to the at the money default initial values. All right, so we've got Build-A-Bear in there, Overstock.com. These are based on just some default criteria that we have, looking for a minimum percent if assigned of 3%, downside protection of 4%. You can see over here on the right-hand side the active filters that we're using for this default search. Strike range in the money, option bid price greater than 50 cents, limit bid-ask spread, stocks trading in an uptrend, between $9 and $100, positive earnings per share growth, relative PE, and of course, we're going to avoid earnings between now and expiration, usually in these search criteria for these strategies. I think we are on this one. Doesn't look like it, though. In any case, what Ernie and I suggest, of course, is that when you're using Power Options, Alice, you can go to the More Information button. So I have all the information I need here. I'm saying an at the money 17.5 August covered call for Build-A-Bear. It's going to be a midpoint of about 198, 11.6% downside protection, and a 16% or so return if assigned at midpoint. Now, to further research and analyze the stock, I can use that More Information button. I can go and research for the stock or the option, check out the company information, news, profile, estimates, and more. Usually the first thing I do is I go to charts. Take a look at a 1-year snapshot, or you can go to big charts or stock charts. Ernie and I prefer to use big charts. And as you can see here, I've set up big charts to match the technicals that I would use to look at a chart. And you can tell right now this one doesn't match my exact preference of what I would want to use for a bull put credit spread, naked put, perhaps even a covered call. What I'm looking at here is the Bollinger Bands. Now, this stock did show what Ernie looks for in his long call screen, a Bollinger Band breakout right here. So Build-A-Bear probably would have popped up about 20 days ago. This is a 3-month chart, so about 20 days ago, 15 days ago, Build-A-Bear would have appeared on the breakout for the long call search. Typically, you see a little bit of hesitation after the breakout, but it's still well above the breakout line. Then it moves back up. So this might have been his exit point right here to get out of a long call if he bought it here based on the Bollinger Band breakout, which I'm assuming this would have come up. Let's see that. Let's look at that date real quick on this particular chart, Alice. That breakout is right about there, obviously. So we're talking about the 26th of May. About right? Yeah, about the 26th of May. We're going to take a look at that a little bit later on, 26th, 27th. Okay, so I'm not saying it's an analyst chart, but we are using technical charting. What we look for is a positive MACD for neutral to bullish positions. This one's actually showing me a negative. We just had a negative crossover about that same time. So this is something that's giving me a bearish indication in this case, and it's dropped below its 20-day moving average. The Bollinger Bands, there's the breakout, which is showing an expanded interest and, of course, an expanded strength, but now it's back into a channel mode. So that's kind of what we like to look for. I have RSI in here as well. I don't typically use that, but it's something that we can do. It's something that you can view. I just have it in there as another indicator with the 20-day moving average and the Bollinger Bands, MACD also. So that's how I have my stock charts. That is the same way Ernie sets up. Using a 3-month chart here in our previous discussion we had from Anthony, we were looking at 6 months results mostly for comparing SPY to how the VIX performed and how the last 6 months might not have been a good approach for using a covered call or collar on the volatility ETFs and ETNs. There is a lot of other criteria that you can set in here to big charts. As I mentioned, I have the SMA 20, and that's mainly because I'm also looking at the Bollinger Bands in this case, which are based on the 20-day timing. The MACD, the 1226, and the EMA 9, of course, as well. And instead of RSI, you can look at things such as stochastic, slow stochastic, Williams percent R, things that you would use to look for it. You can customize big charts. We don't run this site. We just link to it. And of course, volume. Yeah, there's some trends you might want to look for volume. If you see a breakout, but on lower volume, that might be an indicator that it might be a false signal. But if you see a breakout on higher volume, that's usually a good indicator as well. We added the stock charts link recently based on a customer request. I'm not that familiar with it, but it's just another tool that you can use. And as you can see, you can customize this one as well, linking right from PowerOptions to the stock you're researching. You can set the different things that you want for, where's that link there? I'm sorry, there's other links here that you can set, the period time frame, of course. And if you want to set the different indicators that are, there we are, parameters, simple moving average and so forth. And got a little things that come up in ads and everything like that. I just prefer to use big charts because I've been using it on PowerOptions for about 18 years now. So I just continue to use that. Plus, as you see, once you store it, and you could do the same on stock charts, but once I've put my settings in, I just click Store Chart Settings. It saves it as a cookies, but unless my browser, accidentally deletes the cookies because I do an update or something along those lines, it will always remember. So when I log on Monday, I'll go to the same chart. I've set the dark background. That's not Ernie's thing. I just did that here. It showed up better on some of the webinar slides and things of that nature, Alice. So that's what we tend to use as well for our charts and what we're looking for in those cases. Alice wasn't asking directly so much about where to access charts and to use charts. She says, how can you read the chart correctly to know if the stock is going up and down? That's almost a 5-part discussion. It's not something that can be answered in 10 or 15 minutes, Alice. I'm sorry. Man, none of these charts are really what I want. Let me clean this up a little bit. And here's what I'm going to look for. I'm going to just change this slightly to see what I would look for in this case. This is why I normally don't run this search until Monday to find my new positions. I'm going to change the MACD slightly and leave all of my other settings. CrowdStrike, that was a discussion we were having today. Let's take a look at the chart on CrowdStrike. All right. Let me go to a 1-month chart, even though I'd use a 3-month. This doesn't have to be your indicators. This doesn't have to be what you use, but what Ernie and I are looking for is we tend to follow the trend ourselves. This one didn't quite have a Bollinger Band breakout, almost made it right here. What is a Bollinger Band breakout? It closes above the upper Bollinger Band one day and then closes above it the second day. It closed back down here. That would be what Ernie looks for a long call position, sort of a technical indicator to do it. But in general, we're looking to follow the trend. That's what we choose to do here personally. We don't look for bottom feeders. We don't look for stocks that have cratered and are trading at the bottom for a consistent strategy of calendar spreads, bull put credits, naked puts, or covered calls. We look for stocks that are following the trend. And sure, the trend can end if any news comes out, but we wouldn't see that in a chart anyway. That's the unexpected that we have to prepare for. I want a positive MACD, somewhere where the MACD line has crossed over the signal line and is still positive. This one did come close to a point where it went under, but it didn't. It stayed above, and it's holding that as well. And the RSI is not peaking up at the top. Normally, investors will say if the RSI is above 80, then that means it's going to fall. And if it's hitting 30 or if it's hitting 20, that means it's got to bounce off of that and go back up. This one's staying between 50 and 80, so it's keeping a nice casual trend of moving up in price. So this is what I kind of look for a neutral to bullish position. In other fields, if I see that the stock is trading below the 20-day moving average, it had a negative MACD crossover and is moving down, which was my concern with the first result that popped up on the search, and that's why I don't search for normally, A, right? Just NVDA. This here just had a negative MACD crossover. That's concerning to me. I know it's very hard to see, but the blue line just crossed below the red line showing some weakness. It was hitting 80 on the RSI and pulled back, but it didn't dip below the SMA 20 yet. I'd want to wait to see what this does on Monday before doing a trade, but if this continues down and drops below the 20-day moving average and the MACD continues to go negative, where the MACD line, the 12, 26-day average line, is dropping below the EMA 9 continually, that to me is more of a bearish indication. That's a trigger point I would use to potentially exit a bull put credit spread that I was in. Meaning that if I had entered an NVIDIA bull put credit spread a week ago, that expires on the 16th. So I opened it this Monday on the 5th. I couldn't open it on the 5th. The markets were closed. Let's say I opened it on the 6th for the 16th expiration when it was around these prices and had this positive MACD. But today the MACD turned and it started to approach the 20-day moving average. I'm concerned. Regardless of my strikes, I could be at the 750, 740. The stock's still up at 800. But I may be concerned that the trend is starting to change. Come Monday, if this continues to be negative, the MACD, and the stock drops below its 20-day moving average, that's a warning sign to me for a bullish position that I may consider getting out because it looks like the trend is changing. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go ahead and change that. Doesn't mean I'm going to switch it to a bearish position. I may adjust it for more safety. I may roll the position. I may just close it if I'm at a profit. But that's what we kind of look for. And we looked at BBW, I think, was it? Is that the symbol for Build-A-Bear? This to me is semi-bearish. It looks neutral right now because the Bollinger Bears are trailing, but it dropped below the 20-day moving average and it had the negative MACD crossover. In other words, Alice, what I'm saying, I know it's hard to see, is at this point here where the MACD went negative and the stock, well, it just touched the 20-day moving average, but that's sort of a warning sign for me. This here or here is where I would have considered it bullish. Now we're talking about small numbers. That would have been when the stock was around 1750, and it's right about the same price, about 1702. But it did drop down to 15 at one point in this case. Let's take a look very quickly at a bear call credit spread. Yeah, I'll go back. Oh, I don't have it up there. So let me shift everything, actually. I still look for bull puts, but I just want to show you a chart. I'm going to switch this. We're going to look for stocks that are under the SMA 20. And I'm going to change it to MACDs, where the MACD has crossed the signal line by at least 3 days. I don't want it to be negative, but let me go ahead and just run this search. And of course, we're avoiding earnings between now and expiration as well. Let's take out Build-A-Bear and FedEx. And there we go. AMC has been declining. GameStop has been declining. Boeing actually up today. C Limited, SE, actually up today. I'm curious about that one. Let's take a look. Okay, so this one, these are the kind of trends I might look for. What am I looking for? MACD went negative right here, right when the stock dropped below the SMA 20 or close to it. So it was up here where I'd consider a good bullish position, and then the trend started to turn. Saw the MACD getting closer. Once I saw that negative turn, it was below the 20-day moving average. That is a bearish indication for me. Has it happened before? Look right here. Negative MACD crossover. The MACD, the blue line, crossed below the red. These are, someone just pointed out, these are lagging indicators. I understand that. But this is what we kind of look for, and it's below the SMA 20. So what am I saying again? If I entered a bull put here because the stock was above the SMA 20, I had my positive MACD trend I was looking for, and my expiration is over here. When I see these happening, both double indicators there, that's usually when I'm going to consider adjusting, rolling, or closing that spread, because basically 2 out of 3 indicators that I looked for to get into the stock have reversed course and are now bearish. So I'd look to close the position before the losses get any worse. And what's the bullish trend? Well, you can see that there towards the bottom, can't you? MACD considers negative. It's below the signal line to here. Now we get a positive MACD crossover, and the stock pops above the SMA 20. That is a great signal, a signal I would use commonly to look for new positions, sometimes even married puts. I look for something where the MACD has crossed over into a positive range, even if it's negative. What do I mean by negative? This line here, the center line, is called the divergence. That's the divergence line. A lot of investors wait for the MACD to get above the signal line and have a positive crossing, which is also a good indicator. But what I'm saying is that even if I see a crossover that's below the divergence line and the stock just moved above the SMA 20, this to me looks like a good time to get into the position. And it was. And then trend changed again. MACD goes negative. Stock drops below the SMA 20. That's telling me that this run is a little bit over. Might want to consider getting out of the position. Otherwise, right back where I started, or was 2 days ago. But getting out up here, still in the profit range from when I got in. And I might have adjusted, hopefully, up here at the top. You can never quite catch the top. Some people can do that very well. But again, if my profits have been hit at this point, then I might have taken half of it off, depending on the strategy I was in, and then moved on from there. Okay. Here we are looking at a stock here, SE, that we came up, even though it was up today. This is still a bearish trend to me. It's been following a bearish trend here since it went in, and then this was the big marker here to give me a bearish trend. It did bounce back. But we also saw that this was when I might look for a bullish indication at this point. That turned out to be good. Hindsight's 20/20, I know. But this one here, that was a good, skewed that. I'm so sorry. That was a good indication of a bearish move down. Okay. Those are some of the indicators we look for. Now, this one here was tricky, wasn't it? Before that, there's a little false signal. Stock was moving up, had 2 bad days. It did drop below the 20-day moving average, but it didn't close below the 20-day moving average, and the MACD did not get negative. And the next few days, it went back up. So I didn't have 2 of the 3 indicators because it didn't close below the SMA 20. It did breach below it briefly, but then it came back up, but the MACD never went negative in that case. So that was quite all right. But here is the big bearish one. Here's the good bullish one. And here again, another bearish indicator. How we use, well, Ernie and I use the technicals there, Alice, to evaluate positions. Again, I have a lot of Power Options customers and a lot of investors I talk to that use different criteria. That they'll use stochastics that they use for their positions. There's nothing wrong with that. This is just what Ernie and I use as a general gauge for getting into positions and also when to exit and manage positions. If you've ever seen one of my webinars on the 8 ways to manage a bull put credit spread, you have probably seen the trigger point discussion in the first 10 or 15 minutes where we talk about some of those indicators as well. All right, so Alice, that's a brief review, an extended review a little bit, but still a brief review of the dozens of different things we can talk about related to reading a chart, reading news, and everything for a change in direction, bearish or bullish sentiment, what do investors look for. But that's just how we use the big charts here in Power Options to do that. That's how Ernie and I use it, and those are kind of the indicators I look for my trades, very similar to what Ernie looks for in his trades as well. Okay, Rapheal says, could you please inform again how to get to the chart? There's multiple ways, Rapheal, to get to a chart at any time you're looking at a position on Power Options. I'm going to go to Bull Put Credit. I'm going to go to Search. So anytime you're in the search, Rapheal, anytime you're in a sample search, you can link directly to the chart through the Edit More Information button where we do our further research and analysis. So the weekly pull puts, we've got NVIDIA, Coinbase, Zoom, FedEx. Let's take a look at NVIDIA. Okay, now this one had a little pullback here, but I can tell that this is more along the charts of what I'd look for. This one just had a MACD crossover today, so it's probably going to be filtered out with the final day data run in about 10-15 minutes. Why do I say that? Because on the Power Options Search, the bull put credit spread, we're looking for only positive MACD in those cases. Okay, so just linking directly, Rapheal, from the search tool, where you can do other research and analysis, company news and information, detailed stock research and more, midpoint spread chain, search by symbol. It's the same function. What do I mean by that? If I go to search by symbol, just look for other bull puts on NVIDIA, then again, I could just use the more information button, go to charts, and go to big charts. If you're looking at an option chain for a stock, you're checking out, let's say, Apple, Rapheal. You wanted to see some options, maybe covered call opportunities or maybe naked put opportunities just on a single stock. Let's go 7 days out. And you're looking at some of the prices here and the percent return, percent naked yield, percent return if assigned, if it's traded as a covered call. If you click the more information button here, you don't see that. You can do the stock research, go to the call research calculators and more. And that's because all the stock information is up top on the stock listing. Here's where I can go. If I'm looking at the chain, I go up to the top, click on the more information button right next to the symbol. That's where I can go to the charts, company news, profile, and more. If you're in the stock quotes page, you decide to look up Apple to look up the variable information on dividends, volatility for 20-day, 50-day, and more. Same thing, more information button right on top. That'll get you directly to the big charts or the stock charts or the 1-year snapshot. And as always, Rapheal, any positions you're tracking in the portfolio tools, covered calls, credit spreads, married puts, what have you, as you're tracking the positions in the portfolio, that's not a long stock. Let me go to here. But whether you're tracking just an option or you're tracking an underlying stock, more information button there from the portfolio. Once again, charts, company information, and news. And you could do the same thing even if you link from the option. Okay, so you've got all those. Any page that you're on, just use those more information buttons on your navigation guide in that case to see it.